Hello everyone. This is what I refer to as a fast draft recording. So what I'm doing here is I'm simply using a webcam, my Yeti mic, and just some fancy green screening here, but no other effects or no other professional production techniques. Just simply I want to test the content of this presentation out and be able to solicit your feedback before going on to the next draft. So effectively what I'm trying to do here is take a page from Eric Ries and work on some validated learning. All right, so with that, let us move on to the presentation itself. By the way, do you think I would actually put a formal presentation together with this injury? Anyways, here we go. Hello, my name is Steve Adolf, and welcome to our presentation, Don't Bulldoze Vibrant Ecosystems for Consistency. I've been a Agile coach to a large number of organizations, and I've seen many different approaches to attempting to achieve Agile consistency, for example, or consistency in general in software methodology. I would like to argue that seeking consistency in knowledge work processes like software development creates inefficient and unhealthy processes, or at least the way that we have been trying to seek consistency. What I would like to do in this presentation is offer to you where I think the problems are associated with achieving consistency and how we can actually change our approach such that we use consistency to our advantage. So the question is, what is our goal when we seek consistency? In a lot of organizations, that seems to translate into, well, everyone should do the same thing the same way, that we should be using the same tool set, that this is how we achieve efficiency. Well, the answer to this question really does become, how do we actually see or model our organization? Now, if you've ever done an MBA program or business or organizational behavior course, you may have run across this book, Gareth Morgan's Images of Organization. Really, what this book is trying to describe to you is different models, how we can think of an organization. And two of the models I'd like to draw from this book for our argument about consistency are both the mechanical or machine model of an organization versus the biological model of an organization. So one way to look at an organization is as a machine, and one of the early advocates of the so-called machine model was Frederick Taylor, who's credited with the principles of scientific management. Many of you probably are familiar with Frederick Taylor, and sometimes Taylorism is used as a pejorative in the Agile community, sort of the anti-Agilist, you might say. But the characteristics of the machine model is we have a bureaucratic organization. The emphasis is on efficient operation. And to do that, we have very well-defined job descriptions. We have management by objectives, and responsibility for planning effectively lies with management. In other words, what we try to do is break the workers' roles down to fine-grained activities in which they can take work from one station to another. And this is a model that you hear a lot. Even though many organizations protest that they are not mechanical, so many organizations, the pinnacle of software organization is to be the software factory. And so here we have the straightforward tasks, stable environment, very little variation. This is what we're thinking about, when we start using the term software factory. So consistency in this context, in the software factory, means control and efficiency through standard tools and processes. So we have very well-defined processes, we have very well-defined roles, the inputs to each activity is defined, the outputs, and how those inputs and outputs are transformed become the objective of whatever consistency program we're creating. And this must be applied across the entire organization. But there's another way that we can look at the organization. And an alternative approach is to look at the organization as an organism. And as an organism, it can live in an ecosystem. And what's key about taking this organizational model as an organism is to consider that biological systems are open systems, where different organisms have to interact with one another. Just something as simple as a tree. It lives in an ecology, in an ecosystem. It needs water from the earth. It expends heat to the atmosphere. It takes sunlight in to create food. It provides a habitat for other animals or other organisms living in that ecosystem. The droppings from those other animals living in the ecosystem help provide the nutrients that this tree needs. So this is one of the thoughts that we have, is to start looking at the organization more as a biological system perhaps than a mechanical system. So with that in mind now, our definition of consistency, given this need for the ability of different diverse organisms to exchange resources, is consistency is the capability of the organization to create a healthy environment that facilitates the interaction between all the different groups in an organizational ecosystem. This is very different from the mechanical model, because in the mechanical model, we looked at using the same practices, the same tools, but here now consistency becomes enabling the ability of the different organisms to exchange information and to exchange resources. So this gives rise to possibly a new metaphor for software development. Now, if you're in my age demographic, you're probably familiar, or hopefully familiar, with Frederick Brooks' excellent book, The Mythical Man-Month. And one of the metaphors that he brought forward in this book was the so-called tar pit, effectively thinking of software development as a tar pit which pulled the great creatures to their death, given the idea here that software projects were often failures and drew their sponsors and project managers to a gruesome career-ending failure. Well, I'd like to offer a little bit different metaphor on that rather dismal model of software development. Because, you see, in my view, even though we do suffer a lot of failures, this has been a phenomenal industry, the wealth that our industry has created. You think about all the people employed. There's over 50 million people employed in our industry. The wealth it's generated, what the activities that it has enabled. Think of, for example, something as simple as what has microbanking done to make people's lives better in Africa, for example. So this has been a hugely successful industry in many ways. Of course, we have our issues. And that's why if we want to think of software development or model our organization as an organism or ecosystem, that's why I like to think of the swamp as possibly a good metaphor for software development. Swamps are highly productive ecosystems. They bring great advantage or benefit to the areas in which they surround. And they're potentially dangerous. There's all kinds of insects. There's ways of drowning. There's creatures that are probably not too friendly to people who don't know how to survive in the swamp. But if you know how to survive in the swamp, you can succeed and be highly productive. And that's why I think this is a better model for describing software development, the swamp. Potentially dangerous, but highly productive and diverse ecosystem. Now, the swamp presents its challenges to the organization because realistically, if we're taking this sort of organization as an organism, it means we lack repeatable processes. But with the machine model, it's very easy to define repeatable processes, to be able to do the same thing over and over again. With a more diverse model, this becomes much more difficult. That means also there's an inability to reuse and share knowledge because different organisms will use resources in different ways. They'll exchange it in different ways with that ecosystem. So improvement becomes ad hoc rather than systematic. And knowledge is really associated with individuals. You lose that person, you lose that capability. So individuals, therefore, become the constraint to scale. So the machine approach to dealing with this, considering that if we think of software development as a swamp, the machine approach to coping with this is business process reengineering. Well-defined roles, activities, work products, typical software process improvement effort. But in my view, this approach to consistency is the equivalent of paving over the swamp. And I use the classic metaphor here of the Los Angeles River, as this is the classic example of controlling a flooding river or ecosystem by simply paving it over. And I think it would be hard to look at this and say, yeah, that's a productive ecosystem. This looks more like an environmental tragedy. There are big consequences we've learned from creating these monocultures by imposing a single, in agriculture we've learned by imposing a monoculture or rigidly well-defined processes. This is a Cavendish banana. Now, most of the bananas you buy in a grocery store are a clone of the Cavendish banana. And right now, the Cavendish banana is at risk. You may not see these anymore in the grocery store in a while because there is a blight that is destroying the Cavendish crop. Because these are all clones of one another, they have no resistance to the blight. For example, there's no variation that can survive that blight because they are all exactly the same. They will all fail in the same way. Another problem with creating these monocultures or stamping out variations in our software development process is the emergence of invasive species. When we try to remove one species from the ecosystem or to change the ecosystem, what effectively we end up doing is opening spaces where new species can come in. And these are examples of zebra mussels, which are starting to create a lot of havoc in the Great Lakes. These things are clogging up the intakes for water plants, boats, and these are taking up space that other more productive and useful species could take. And to think about this in terms of software development, when we try to impose a single corporate methodology on the organization, how many ad hoc or guerrilla methodologies pop up? How many teams actually follow the corporate methodology? Usually what I find is that most teams I talk to will tell me, hey, if we ever did it that way, we would never get anything done. And so this is a real issue. While we may be trying to manage our organization thinking we have one well-defined corporate process, the reality is we have an invasive species of all these ad hoc processes that have absolutely no great inability to share or work together. And so where this argument goes is really to draw from Charles Darwin that perhaps efficiency, the objective of machine consistency, which would be efficiency, should be not the goal of what we're trying to achieve. Because we really believe that organizations that fossilize their processes, even agile processes, the agile is not exempt from this, are destined to become fossils themselves. And if we look at Charles Darwin, it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the ones that are most responsive to change. By fossilizing our processes, we inhibit or impede our ability to change to changes in our environment. So a different approach. A colleague of mine, Alistair Cockburn, in his doctoral dissertation, summarized his philosophy as, every project deserves its own methodology. And on the surface of that sounds like a recipe for total chaos. However, what we want to be able to do is embrace methodological diversity. Let teams and programs create their methodology and select the toolings depending on their context. Especially in large organizations, the context from team to project varies. asking everyone to adopt the same tool is ignoring the importance of that context. But of course, this sounds like a total recipe for chaos. And I want to emphasize our argument is not that consistency should not be conformity. We're not arguing against consistency. What we're arguing against is consistency that is machine conformity. So we're not saying that you have the right to create a random process. What we're talking about is consistency is enabling the free interchange of resources between organisms in the ecosystem. To enable that, to bring structure to that so that we don't fall into chaos, there are several models that we can follow for the healthy ecosystem. Two of these come courtesy of Dr. Philippe Kutchin, the so-called frog and octopus. The frog captures what are the common elements of the software development process, whereas the octopus captures what is different, what are the attributes that make up the context of a software development process. Finally, there's the newt that captures the important social practices and social roles that people must play to have a healthy software development ecosystem. One thing also to consider as well, a famous quote by John F. Kennedy: "Conformity is the jailer of freedom and the enemy of growth." Consider that when we have one standard process across our organization, where is the opportunity to learn from the experiences of other teams? We may have a wide variety of, consider the opportunity in a wide variety of different processes, each team, group, experimenting with new ideas, being able to borrow ideas from one team and incorporate them into another. That opportunity does not exist if we all have one standard process. So say no to bulldozing the swamp and creating the factory monoculture, and embrace the diversity and create a healthy software development ecosystem. So thanks, guys. This has effectively just been the first draft, the first time I've gone through this. Again, I want just to get your feedback on this, where you think some ideas need strengthening or how we can make this a stronger presentation. And also just wanted to check out the timing on this. Okay, so I'm going to end it right here.